A century ago, on a World War I battlefield, a Canadian medical doctor, John McCrae, penned the words, "In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row." Those poppy seeds can lay dormant in the ground for 100 years, waiting for the right conditions to grow. And they were growing on that ground because it had been churned up by the falling bombs and the digging of graves. In this poem, the recently killed soldiers cry out from their graves to their brothers to take the torch and continue the fight. And this poem began its life as a literal call to arms, but has since come to be used most often as a memorial to veterans. But it is also applicable in our own lives as a inspiration to stay the fight and press on. So I hope during this meditation you can use it to think on your own personal battles or more metaphorical struggles for justice and peace and the ending of war.
This congregation is an oasis of relative peace for those of us who make it up. But the world in which we and the congregation live is not peaceful. Thinking back over my lifetime, there has not been a year of it without warfare somewhere in the world. 77 years ago, people worldwide learned that we live with nuclear weapons. Today, when we think of warfare, we think of Ukraine, but it is not only there that armed strife exists. My question for us this morning is, how do we cope with such a world? religious sources seem to offer mixed messages. On the one hand, swords beaten into plowshares, spears into pruning hooks. On the other hand, I have not come to bring peace, but the sword. Let us search together for ways to be human, authentic, principled, ways to rise above simplistic either-or choices, and to speak to the best that is humanly possible in a conflictual world.
Good morning. Sometimes we are faced with questions larger than any one of us. We come together working to develop answers naturally. Together, we can find ways to live consciously, creatively, and with integrity, even in a conflicting world. We can maintain this congregation as a conflict oasis of peace. We can, you and I, know the reality of warfare, but bend the moral arc of the universe in directions of peace. Living with such questions and seeking such answers, come, let us worship together.
The Flaming Chalice, a symbol now used worldwide by Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists, was born in the context of war. During World War II, the Unitarian Service Committee was working in Europe, trying to aid refugees fleeing fascism. A refugee artist created the Flaming Chalice for the Service Committee. This morning, we kindle our chalice as a symbol of hope and aspiration as we envision movement toward a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Now, please stand in body or spirit for our unison affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our great covenant.
Good morning.
Morning.
In this Unitarian Universalist community, we take care of each other. When we care for one another, our connections become stronger. When we care for one another, we weave and strengthen that interdependent web of existence that sustains us. So let us now share the joys and concerns of members and friends of this community. This morning, our hearts are heavy as we remember the heartbreak and sorrow of the thousands of residents of eastern Kentucky still suffering from the catastrophic flooding that ravaged so many towns and hollers and took so many lives. Some of us have connections to those communities, including Bill Fields, who is from East Kentucky, and he wrote me this morning, "Mostly my family is okay. Like everyone else, they lost a lot of stuff, but as far as I know, all the folks are okay. Lots of them are engaged in helping other people who did not fare so well." And that just underscores the importance that they really need our support today and in many, many, many days ahead. And just the other day, in fact, on her Facebook page, Trish Adams was asking for donations for push brooms to help a friend gathering cleaning materials to send to eastern Kentucky. And that leads me to both a joy and a concern for Trish's son, Chance Adams, the famous Captain Chance, who came home last month after 370 days of treatment for medulloblastoma at St. Jude's. Now in recovery, Captain Chance recently celebrated his 6th birthday and was treated to a ride in the Batmobile on a visit to Children's Hospital. The joy for today is that on Wednesday, Chance starts kindergarten. The concern is for his safety as he learns how to navigate the playground on his walker. I don't think there's ever been a braver, more resolute warrior than Captain Chance Adams. Yesterday, we had a belated memorial reception for Liz Hobkirk, who died in the earlier days of the pandemic. Her family thanks you, the church, for your support for this special gathering of friends and family. Liz and her husband Dave were stalwart supporters of the congregation through thick and thin. Her daughter, Betsy, told us she always thought of her mom as being like the actress Julie Andrews, as she had the lively spirit of Maria in The Sound of Music and the playful and highly organized spirit of Mary Poppins. At TVUC, we remember her for her perpetual smile, her positive attitude, her ability to use the power of praise to move the congregation in a good direction. And as Betsy said, she was a force to be reckoned with. So we remember Liz. There are 2 announcements about upcoming memorial services. As you know, Chris Brown died of cancer 2 weeks ago today. His wife, Suzanne Brown, welcomes everyone to attend his memorial service here at TVUC on Sunday, August 21 at 2 p.m. This will be a time to remember the kindest, gentlest, heavy metal rock and roller our church has ever known. In addition, Ken's Kitchen, invites you to an online memorial service for his husband, Larry, on Sunday, August the 28th at 2 p.m. Larry, who died last September, was very active in our congregational life, especially social action initiatives such as FISH, Family Promise, Advancing Equality on the Hill, and the Welcoming Congregation program. Look for a Zoom link to this service in your email and in the church newsletter. Longtime TVUC member Bill Pierce, who manages the TVUC listserv and helps maintain the church website, recently returned home from Stony Brook, New York, which he visits with increasing frequency to help his siblings care for his 90-year-old father and 89-year-old mother. His mother is now in a long-term care home, while his father continues to live in the family home. Today, let us remember Bill and all those in the congregation who experience the challenges, joys, and sorrows of caring for aging family members. And there are those of us, unfortunately, caring for our adult children as well. This includes Dwight Pittman. Dwight's son, Forrest, is seriously ill from complications from a previous cancer. He has been heavily sedated and on a ventilator in ICU at Blount Memorial Hospital for the last 2 weeks. Forrest is a Christian, and Dwight and his partner Joy Meese welcome everyone's prayers for Forrest's recovery and health. This morning, we can celebrate good news from Jim Hartzell, who reports that his 7-year-old granddaughter McKinley is doing well with her cancer treatments. All her biopsies are clear. There are still some more rounds of chemotherapy, but the treatment program is moving in a very positive direction. Jim says, I am a Unitarian. He welcomes prayers, meditations, and good vibes. He says, I am a Unitarian. I'll take whatever you've got. You can send messages to his home address, which can be found in the church directory via the church website. Also, Reverend Jametta Alston, who TVUC's former assistant minister, is now preparing to leave Knoxville and return home to Rhode Island. Chloe Erowaldi Waters is organizing a group of TVUC members to help Jametta pack and get ready for her move. This will take place on Friday, August 19, starting at 2:30 p.m. If you can help, please contact Chloe, who's right here. And of course, we wish Jametta all the best. Today, just 3 days after the election, and 1 day after the 55th anniversary of the signing of the 1967 Civil Rights Act, we celebrate the fact that we had the opportunity to go to the polls and vote. We are concerned about the attacks on our voting rights. Let's fight to keep that opportunity open and honest and free and fair. If you are not already familiar with UU the Vote, in preparation for the midterm elections this fall, jump on the internet and go to uuthevote.org for more information. There's a lot there. And if you're not registered to vote, please do so, and please plan on voting in the November election for both state and national offices. Finally, just as a reminder that you can call the Pastoral Care phone line, 865-297-3155. That number is in your order of service as well and in the newsletter, to discuss a personal matter, to share a joy or concern with the congregation, and to arrange for rides to the doctor and similar needs. Members of the spiritual care team and Heartline volunteers are generally available during the day and early evening, 7 days a week, but will respond to phone messages at any time. After today's service, take advantage of the spiritual care team's listening booths in the lobby and hallways. Stop by, sit a spell, and talk about what's on your mind and in your heart. And please do also stop by the caring table in the Greg McKendry Fellowship Hall to add your name to messages of support that will be mailed to those in need of your good wishes. Jane Aiken and Sharon Fields are today's volunteers at the caring table. Let us acknowledge and hold in our hearts all of the congregation's joys and concerns, spoken and unspoken this day. Thank you.
This morning's reading is going to be Mosaics by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She wrote, "Sometimes people will ask me, there is so much happening in the world and in the country, and it all feels so big and overwhelming. What can I even do as one person? What I try to convey every time is that no action is too small. And if you feel so moved, you can and should start with whatever is within arm's reach or in your backyard. You can even start with yourself. We live in a culture of grand gestures and big ambitions, but that also means we should be wary of how much get-rich-quick thinking can perpetuate beyond money schemes and into the idea that any and all major, impactful shifts happen suddenly and in dramatic fashion with a handful of major figures. The fact is, that couldn't be further from the truth. Revolutionary and transformative changes from the inside out happen more like mosaics. Think of it like this. No matter who you are, how visible or invisible, how big or small, each one of uses just one tile. Whether you see that as liberating or disempowering is a matter of perspective. When you have your eye pressed all the way up to the single tile of a mosaic, it can look quite meaningless. A single piece of shattered glass could look worthless, or perhaps a piece of small painted porcelain could seem beautiful, but too small to be anything. Or maybe a stunning, rare slab of stone may think itself as the biggest piece, when in reality it's a corner tile. The secret is it's all significant. The two secrets of mosaics are: 1, each piece us and our small actions, is more powerful and meaningful than we know. And two, each piece, we, need each other far more than we realize. When we are able to step back from thinking our own broken, unfinished pieces are not enough, and start to see how all the other little pieces glistening alongside us start to form eyes and ears and abstract beauty and landscapes and symbols and more, we realize that just because we didn't see the big picture at first doesn't mean we weren't part of one. So just do the small thing for yourself and for others. Choose your actions with humility, love, and enthusiasm. It means more than you know, and the world thanks you for it. Take heart.
Please turn to responsive reading number 602. If there is to be peace. Sarai and I are going to share the reading. When I read a line, I would ask that this side of the room respond, and when Sarai reads a line, we ask that this side of the room respond. If there is to be peace in the world,
if there is to be peace in the nations,
if there is to be peace in the cities,
if there is to be peace between neighbors,
if there is to be peace in the home,
thank you.
Good morning. My name is Claudia Presley. I'm the Director of Administration here, and today is a Generosity Sunday. What that means is that 100% of your contribution today that is not marked as a pledge will go to the General Operating Fund of TVUUC. The ways that you can give are listed in your order of service if you're here. If you're watching us online, the easiest way to give is to go to our website, tvuuc.org. There's a tab over on the right that says Give. Click that, and it will give you the opportunity to give from there. Or you can text Give to the number 73256, type in TVUUC, and then the amount that you would like to give. So once again, thanks for being here. Have a wonderful day.
Alexander Pescanov is a Ukrainian-born composer, pianist, and educator who spent most of his adult life teaching children in the United States. And when the war in Ukraine started, he wrote this piece, this prelude, in memory of the children of Ukraine, and has dedicated all the proceeds of the sales of the piece to helping their families. The piece itself is an opportunity to meditate and place yourself in those children's place. Experience their experiences.
It's been commented there is no sermon listed, but there is a sermon. Presented in this case by two retired Unitarian Universalist ministers. Before Robert Fulghum became a best-selling author with Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten, he had retired from Unitarian Universalist ministry. He was precocious in his retirement. This is from another of his books. It is the year 2050 in a large Eastern European city, one that has survived the vicissitudes of more than 1,000 years of human activity. In an open square in the city center, there's a rather odd civic monument, a bronze statue, not a soldier or politician, not a general on a horse or a king on a throne. Instead, the figure of a somewhat common man sitting in a chair, playing his cello. Around the pedestal on which the statue sits, there are bouquets of flowers. If you count, you will always find 22 flowers in each bunch. The cellist is a national hero. If you ask to hear the story of this statue, you will be told of a time of civil war in the city. Demagogues lit bonfires of hatred between citizens who belonged to different religions and ethnic groups. Everyone became an enemy of someone else. None was exempt or safe. Men, women, children, babies, grandparents, old and young, strong and weak, partisan and innocent. All were victims in the end. Many were maimed, many were killed. Those who did not die lived like animals in the ruins of the city, except one man, a musician, a cellist. He came to a certain street corner every day, dressed in formal black evening clothes, sitting in a fire-charred chair. He played his cello, knowing he might be shot or beaten. Still, he played. Day after day he came to play the most beautiful music he knew. Day after day, for 22 days. His music was stronger than hate, his courage stronger than fear. And in time, other musicians were captured by his spirit, and they took their places in the street beside him. These acts of courage were contagious. Anyone who could play an instrument or sing found a place at a street intersection somewhere in the city and made music. In time, the fighting stopped. The music and the city and the people lived on. A nice fable, a lovely story, something adults might make up to inspire children. A tale of the kind found in tourist guidebooks explaining and embellishing the myths behind civic statuary. A place to have your picture taken. Is there any truth in such a parable? other than the implied acknowledgement of the sentimentality of myth-making. The real world. The real world doesn't work this way. We all know that. Cellists seldom become civic heroes. Music does not affect wars. Vedran Smailovic does not agree. In the New York Times Magazine, July 1992, his photograph appeared. Middle-aged, longish hair, great bushy mustache. He is dressed in formal evening clothes, sitting in a cafe chair in the middle of a street, in front of a bakery, where mortar fire struck a bread line in late May, killing 22 people. He is playing his cello. As a member of the Sarajevo Opera Orchestra, there is little he can do about hate and war. It has been going on in Sarajevo for centuries. Even so, every day, for 22 days, he has braved sniper and artillery fire to play Albinoni's profoundly moving Adagio in G minor. I wonder if he chose this piece of music knowing it was constructed from a manuscript fragment found in the ruins of Dresden after the Second World War. The music survived the firebombing. Perhaps that is why he played it there, in the scarred streets in Sarajevo, where people died waiting in line for bread. Something must triumph over horror. Is this man crazy? Maybe. Is his gesture futile? Yes, in a conventional sense. Yes, of course. But what can a cellist do? What madness to go out alone in the streets and address the world with a wooden box and a hair-strung bow. What can a cellist do? All he knows how to do, speaking softly with his cello, one note at a time, like the Pied Piper of Hamelin, calling out the rats that infest the human spirit. Vedran Smailovic is a real person. What he did is true. Neither the bread line, nor the mortar shell, nor the music is fiction. For all the fairy tales, these acts do take place in the world in which we live. Sometimes history knocks at the most ordinary door to see if anyone is at home. Sometimes someone is. Most everyone in Sarajevo knows now what a cellist can do, for the place where Vedran played has become an informal shrine, a place of honor. Croats, Serbs, Muslims, Christians alike, they all know his name and face. They place flowers where he played, commemorating the hope that must never die, that someday, somehow, the best of humanity shall overcome the worst, not through unexpected miracles, but through the expected acts of the many. Sarajevo is not the only place where Vedran is known. An artist in Seattle, Washington, saw his picture and read his story. Her name is Beliz Brother. Real person, real name. What could an artist do? She organized 22 cellists to play in 22 public places in Seattle for 22 days. And on the final day, all 22 played together in one place in front of a store window, displaying burned out bread pans, 22 loaves of bread, and 22 roses. People came. Newspaper reporters and television cameras were there. The story and the pictures were fed into the news networks of the world and passed back to Vedran, that he might know his music had been heard and passed on. Others have begun to play in many cities. In Washington, D.C., 22 cellists played the day our new president was sworn into office. Who knows who might hear? Who knows what might happen? Millions of people saw Vedran's story in the New York Times. Millions have seen and heard the continuing story picked up by the media. Now, you too know. Tell it to someone. This is urgent news. Keep it alive in the world. As for the end of the story, who among us shall insist the rest of the story cannot come true? Who shall say the monument in the park in Sarajevo will never come to pass? The cynic who lives in a dark hole in my most secret mind says one cellist cannot stop a war, and music can ultimately only be a dirge played over the unimaginable. But somewhere in my soul, I know otherwise. Listen. Never, ever regret or apologize for believing that when one person decides to risk addressing the world with truth, the world may stop what it is doing and hear. There is too much evidence to the contrary. When we cease believing this, the music will surely stop. The myth of the impossible dream is more powerful than all the facts of history. In my imagination, I lay flowers at the statue memorializing Vedran Smailovic, a monument that has not yet been built, but may be. Meanwhile, a cellist plays in the streets of Sarajevo. I invite you to join in a time of meditation, reflection, prayer, in spoken word, and silence. We may wonder, what can I do to diminish strife and warfare? We can do what we find before us that needs doing. We can do what we are gifted with the skill or passion to do. We can be our best selves. May we understand that doing nothing in the face of need is to be unfaithful to our best selves, unfaithful to human need, unfaithful to any and every religious tradition at its best. May we understand that we cannot expect to see ultimate success, to see strife and warfare cease. May we understand that success is to have been true to our best self and to have done our part. Amen. I invite you to rise and join in our unison closing words. Prophetic church made up of prophetic and compassionate people, the troubled world awaits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love. Create the world that yet may be. As a final act of worship, turn, greet your neighbors.